Okay, we're in. Wow. All right, today is November the 13th?
The 13th?
Man, finishing up on the holidays. The year's almost over with. All right, thanks for tuning in to the Future Award-winning Beer and Conversation show, #1 show in the world for comprehensive barbershop talk. Crazy weekend, crazy weather. Weather is just wintry, like, I'm serious. Like, yesterday was the first day. First of all, hold on, how you doing? You all right, Rasheed? It's good to see you.
I'm good. Good to see you as well, sir.
DJ KP, see you got the Cowboys hat on over there.
Yeah, so sad.
They won 8 games, so I got to represent.
That was a big victory for them on Sunday night. They might have bought Jason Garrett a little more time. And
They should. He's already 2 years, on borrowed time, as far as I'm concerned.
Truth. I can agree with that. And we got the beautiful Miss J Certified here.
So
fabulous Miss J Certified.
Thank you, Laris. Thank you for having me.
Well,
again.
Thanks for being here. I felt very special. You was on 1100 a.m. on Friday.
Yes.
And whenever you hear your name on another radio show, it really makes you feel good. And so I got it was a fragmented shout out, but I appreciate it nonetheless, Jay.
Really? You
Yeah.
fragmented shout out?
But no, I mean, I'm playing. You know what I mean?
That's how you hate black folks
playing?
shouted. Black folks shouted. See how they do you? See how they do you?
Yeah, but Jay, you can tell them a little bit. She's got her show debuting tomorrow.
Yes.
Yeah, so you want to tell them a little bit about it before we get started?
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Status Network and Lyve TV and Laris Beer and Conversations for having me on. Hey, Sylvia. Thank you so much for letting me have opportunity to talk about my show. So tomorrow, my show is going to air. It's the Atlanta Certified Show. And the concept of this show is to tell people where to go, what to do, places to see, all the hot spots that are minority owned here in Atlanta where you're going to get a great experience. And these are places that I go to, my friends go to. We patron these establishments because they are awesome and they really continue to wove, I guess you could say, the fabric of great business here in Atlanta, because all people know that Atlanta is a great place to come and do business. It's a great place for minorities, especially black folks, to come in and start a business and really thrive. And I want to promote and propel these businesses and let people know they are here, they exist, and I want you to patron these establishments because these are wonderful places to go. This is a lifestyle show. I also want you to know a little bit more about the history of Atlanta. A lot of times people think Atlanta is Martin Luther King, maybe a little bit about Sweet Auburn, but there is so much more to the history of Atlanta than that, and it's so rich. I'm not going to give a history lesson, but I will give you some small nuggets of information about Atlanta and hope that it will spark your interest for you to learn a little bit more about where you live. We have a lot of transplants here now, no offense. And we have, of course,
traffic is so damn bad. Yeah.
Right. We have natives here who aren't going outside of the neighborhood. And I want everybody to really rediscover the Atlanta that's continuing to evolve, the Atlanta that's continuing to grow. And you may actually find yourself really interested in something that's going on or being created here in Atlanta. So I want to be all things Atlanta for you and your guide to a wonderful experience while you live here and know the city in which you call home now.
Right. Not to mention, you should tune in because at some point I'll be on that show.
Yes, Laris will definitely be on this show. I have to have him.
So you'll definitely enjoy that part of it. All right. Now, moving forward, and I'm trying to respond to the messages as they come. Thanks for everybody tuning in. Lisa,
yes, thanks.
Meeting you. Earlier today, somebody asked me, Rasheed, they had the nerve to say, "Hey, bro, you gonna have a good show today?" I was like, "Duh, come on." So if I respond slow, it's because this phone is a piece of shit. It is a pain in my ass, just to be straight up with you. But, so people say before, well, and I just think the same thing. You don't, name, brands of phone doesn't matter as long as you can call, text, email, and all that. No, it does matter. And you definitely, when you have these type of phones, do not want to go on sites like Pornhub. It'll just mess it all up.
So, that's a decent phone, though. It's a decent brand.
Oh, my God.
Sylvia's laughing at you right now.
Oh yeah, well, I mean, I'm just saying. I'm sure everybody's familiar with Pornhub. It's what is it? Pornography is like an $8 trillion a year business.
I should have got into that industry as a producer. Producer.
So I know that I'm not the only one who's been on that site. Now, anyway, I'm joking, guys. Really. But
it's money in porn. Money in
it really is, obviously. Now, so moving forward, we got a good show today. One of the viewers/listeners had tagged me in a post early on, and it was like the Black Ink Crew. I don't even watch it, but I did. I gave it its due time. I watched the clip, and it kind of sparked why we wanted to have one of the discussions today. Also, was talking with somebody before, and we got talking about just the state of hip hop right now, and in this era that we kind of, everybody talks about the mumble rap all the time, and that's a big part of it. There's a lot of mumble rap, but one of the trends that I had kind of seen too, and we'll get into that, is that the male rappers are starting to look more like women, and then the female rappers are starting to look more like men, and there's just no getting around it, and everybody seems to be okay with it. So we'll get to that in a second. Now, let's go to Mike. No? Yeah, go down November 3rd. We'll give him some time to do that. But something very interesting, I had watched this clip of Black Ink Crew, and I noticed something that was a little disturbing for me, and y'all may catch it. So as he pulls the clip up, we'll get into it. But it prompted the whole idea of there is no such thing as a friends with benefits. And so I had this discussion in the barbershop, which is like a barbershop / salon, over the past weekend. And now, let me just say this. For the record, there are things that happen. There are occurrences. There are one-night stands or whatever. That is something completely different than a friends with benefits. Okay. And so, anyway, he's pulling the clip. Mike, how are we doing over there? Yep. November 3rd. Okay. Well, here's what I'll do. Why don't I do it this way? I'll just reshare it right now.
Okay.
Publicly. And then we'll get to that.
Can you describe the clip?
Yeah. Well, basically, he's sitting there. I don't even know these characters who, I don't even know these characters. But, because I don't really watch TV like that. Mm-hmm. But it was, two of the main characters were sitting down having dinner. And, let's see if I can find it here. Two of the main characters were sitting down having dinner. And there was mention about her being clingy or too possessive or something like that. I'm going to share public now, Mike, with that. So, and he basically, in so many words, just kind of alluded to the fact that he didn't have a ring on his finger and she didn't have a ring on her finger. And, well, the other part of the scene to kind of show us. So we should have that here shortly. Nonetheless, I can expect some of that stuff out of maybe guys who are in their 20s. This notion of friends with benefits. And I hear women talk about it all the time, but I just do not believe it. I just have not seen it to be true. There's the clip right there. We can go ahead and run that clip.
I'm trying to find out where we stand with everything.
Well, I'm wondering the same thing.
I mean, like, I love you.
I love you so much. You don't even listen to this kid.
You have to cool out a little bit. I really feel like you've been a little too possessive over me lately. And like, why every female that get next to me, like, you try and run them out of my life? The bottom line is, like, I'm gonna do what I want. I need you to understand that. Like, you gotta stop picking on these in the shop. Like, you gotta stop trying to dictate my life. If I want to inside the shop, I can inside the shop. There's no ring on my finger. There's no ring on your finger. We're not in a relationship.
I love you.
Right. So, at any rate,
what happened?
Oh, well, basically, she just was like, he was saying, hey, look, I don't want you to act possessive when I'm around other women. I mean, we've seen some of this stuff play out. I've experienced it. It's crazy. I'm still a young man. I'm 36, but between my 20s and now, it's a lot. It's a lot. And when we're younger, as a man, and DJ KP, you know this. This, a lot of times I know I pick on the women, but I really wanted to call the men out on this one. Because it just don't exist, man. There is no friends with, it doesn't exist. There is no friends with benefits.
Can I share something with you?
Absolutely.
And I found this out to be true by personal experience. Not once, not twice, not 3 times, not 4.
Right, not
You
5,
get it.
not 6,
Right.
not 7, not
And
8.
a long time ago, someone told me this, and I've kind of used it to kind of teach other guys coming along. If you hit it 1 time, that's a one-night stand, right? If you hit it 2 times, that's an affair. Hit it 3 times, that's a relationship. I don't care what you call it.
What if it's stretched out over a year?
There's different types of relationships, and I'm a person that I don't trip on. I don't really trip on titles. There's a title for everything. Oh, that little boy's ADHD. Oh, you know, this girl over here, she's this or that. I mean, call it what you want to, but it is what it is, what it is. You know. So again, there's different levels of a relationship or different types, but it's still a relationship of some sort.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Even if it is a quote unquote friends with benefits, that's a form of a relationship.
If you're sleeping together regularly, that's a relationship to a woman.
Yes, it is.
There's just no
Or
getting
is
around
it?
It is.
If you're saying that more women are taking on the persona of men, and men are it's kind of a role reversal, is it really that women are looking at these situations as quote unquote relationships, romantic relationships, versus just, you know, somebody to entertain?
I don't think that they can actually control themselves. I'm just going to be honest with you. I think that the problem is that men actually.
Really, sir?
I think the problem is that men well, let's just say, well, she said. I've had plenty of men say, well, she knew what it was going into it.
But did she? Did you really? Do men really explain that whole and lay everything out as they should?
It just doesn't exist.
But I think that's that misinterpretation, miscommunication. Rashid,
I've been very clear, and it always ends up being I want more at some point. But hey, that's clear communication back, so it's all good.
Yeah. I'm just saying.
so what about when men want more? There are men out there who want more.
I'm sure there are.
You're just
I
not
haven't
one
been
of
that
them.
guy, but I'm sure they're out there.
Lies.
What do you mean? You
all
mean
kind of
like
lies.
men want more, but then the woman doesn't want more?
Yes, that happens more often than not.
Sure.
I'd like to meet these women that you're talking
Hello.
about.
Hello.
Whoa, yeah.
How you doing?
Okay. Boy, it is getting really hot in here all of a sudden. Really? Okay. Whew.
But the thing is, one of those things where sometimes, you know, is those situations where one person sees a different type of future or a different type of path with that person that they're courting or dating than the other person. And that happens men and women. Sometimes a man is like, you know what, I like her, I want to be with her, and I see a future with her. And she may be like, you know, I'm not on that same page with you, and vice versa. Women see a dude, I want him, I want to be with him, but he's like, yeah, I'm not seeing that type of future with us. But you're cool people. It happens both ways. She needs
You want us to get you a mic? Okay, yeah.
Well,
This is the lovely Trisha.
Lewis.
hi. Well, in my experience now, getting older and creeping in my mid-30s, I have changed my perspective on friends with benefits. All my friends benefit from me, and I benefit from all my friends. And that is not in a sexual way at all. 100%, there's no, if you and I are friends, we're going to benefit from each other. Hey, I'm going to wherever you want to go. Is that not a benefit, right? We benefit from each other. I think the problem is when sex is thrown into the equation and emotions get involved, because we know that it's sexual causes, you know, sexual soul ties, and that can go into a whole nother thing, but we are emotionally connected to sex. So when you incorporate sex, it's bound to bring some other emotions into it. So if you leave that out, you can really benefit from having friends from both genders.
Well, specifically, and I mean, from a semantic standpoint, I understand what you're saying, that every friendship should be beneficial, right? I think, I forgot which one of the great political thinkers it was, maybe Aristotle, that said, I think it was, I wrote a paper on it being an introduction to classism into society, that people should be paired based off of, every man should have as much as he can handle, and then friends will have all things in common. So it was, I believe the interpretation was that that friends should also be peers, right? And so then it should be a mutual beneficial relationship. I think that there are a lot of relationships that we're stuck with because of like past loyalties that maybe aren't the best, most healthy relationship. But as we get older and wiser, we seek to only communicate and align ourselves with people who can benefit us. But we also can bring something to the table. Specifically for this discussion, I was talking specifically about men's notion of, I can sleep with her and we can just only be friends. And I don't see, I haven't experienced it. I had someone come to me a year or so ago and said, well, why don't you just get with a woman that she's doing her thing, you're doing your thing, and y'all can kind of be together sexually, and then that's it. And I was just like, it doesn't work like that. I just never see KP. I've never seen it.
It may not be sustainable, but I mean, it can work for some period of time, I think.
Yeah, I don't think it's sustainable either for a long period of time. And again, just like all things else in life, it depends on timing. When you meet this person, they may be in a certain place in their life, and you may be in a certain place in your life where it works for the both of you. But like you said, you know, that's probably not gonna last for the duration. Now, especially since I'm not on camera, I'll put my business out there a little bit. I actually have.
Yeah, I was about to say, what's pop up on the
Go ahead and
screen
switch that camera.
I actually have female friends that I have had a so-called.
Oh, you on camera now.
That's what I had as well.
Friends with benefits.
Okay. So,
Relationship.
So
But-
Rose commented, I'm sorry, and I want you guys,
Okay.
she said, I don't believe in different levels of relationships. Women categorize their male friends. I think so too. And I think you know rather quickly if you've been friend zoned. We did a show on the friend zone one time. It was a long
Right.
time ago. That's a very hard place to be, is that friend zone.
It
It
depends.
can be it's like purgatory.
Why is it
Yes.
purgatory?
Well, I haven't been friend zoned a lot. But
Of course
it has
not.
happened before in my life.
Even happens to the best of
But
us.
it doesn't
clearly.
bother you though unless you're interested.
And again,
Well,
that
that-
interest
well, that-
level that I was
right.
talking about before, you're more interested in the woman that you would like to pursue, and she's like, yeah, I'm feeling you, but not like that. So it happens, but the thing about it happens.
Well, and the friend
it's-
zone just doesn't generally come with benefits either.
It comes with
benefits for the
companionship.
woman.
It
It
comes
comes
from a
with
companionship for both
Well,
people.
we know what friends with benefits is a euphemism
But
for.
what the
and it ain't
euphemism? What is the
companionship.
euphemism? Let's lay that all out on
It's
the table
for
so we
sex.
can be clear.
Benefits
When
are
I say
sex.
friends with benefit, they mean that I can have sex with you and not commit to you. That's
Okay.
exactly what that means.
Yep.
And
That is the
when
only
men
benefit.
say, and if there is a man who has meant it differently, feel free to comment in or call back. The number is 470-251-4707. I'm telling you, as a 36-year-old man living in Atlanta, when men say friends with benefits, I mean, the clip was clear. And it was one of the viewers / listeners who sent the clip to me and kind of had made the suggestion that is something that need to be discussed. And I think that that's where the disconnect is. Rose says yes, and the status tends to never change. Correct. So I don't know. I just when I saw the clip, here's what troubled me. I didn't have an issue with, like I said, with a young man saying, "Oh, you know, this is what she said. She said that we had an agreement. We understood that this is what it was." Exactly. I have an issue with a man 30 plus that hasn't figured out by now that that's not real. Now,
Well, and they're telling each other they love each other. That's a little.
that's true too. Maybe they were talking about a friendly type of love. I'm just saying.
That's not what I picked up
So-
from. I can't read people's minds, but that's not what I picked up from there.
One of my Facebook friends has said friends with benefits, like Trish said, should benefit both friends. I mean, in a number of ways. And I think what happens is we don't have those really serious and in-depth conversations to say, okay, let's really lay this out. Let's really say, okay, is this what it really is? Sometimes people do. Rashid here said, hey, I let people know what it is. This is how I feel. This is where I am. And this is the stage I am in my life. Some people can have those conversations very candidly, and some people can't. I believe that men don't necessarily want to say, and maybe women don't want to say this is just a sexual relationship because they don't want to lose the sex. They'll say and do
never.
and come and they'll say, okay, well, I'll say what I need to say just enough to make sure that I maintain the sexual relationship with this person. And as soon as they start talking about wanting more, wanting a relationship and things like that, I'll try to bounce, but I may not bounce that quickly. I'll try to give in just a little bit to make sure I keep that, because until I find the next. And I mean, men and women, I think both do it all the same. It's all the way around. It's not just one-sided when it comes to that.
I think a lot of it has to do with age, at least as far as men go. Because I mean, when I was younger, I was scared to say that stuff. Now it is what it is, and no one has ever been not cool with that. Now it could just be that they're just trying to hang on, and I'll convert him at some point, whatever. That could be part of it. But I have found that being honest about those terms has never caused me to lose anything.
No ass. So do you think if you would have done that a little sooner in life and kind of understood that maybe when you were younger, things would have been a little different? You wouldn't have been playing as many games. You may not have your car keyed as many times, have your tires flat and all that stuff.
Please don't bring
Yeah, I've been fortunate not to be in those types of situations.
Bless you.
But
I don't
maybe.
know if younger women could handle that, though. Older women, as they get
I
older
don't
and
know.
mature,
I don't know.
I know some
I
older
mean,
women
look,
may not be able to handle it
put it
either
this
now.
way, just because they can't handle it don't mean that they're not willing to do it or they're not doing it.
Look, let's get to what this is, in my mind, really about, which is the denormalization of marriage, all right, as a social mores.
And that's what's going on, for sure.
Ultimately, what you're talking about is, and then when you even get into marriage and you get into monogamy, which is a specific type of marriage that is not universal, but the whole idea of monogamy is really about, in theory, everybody being paired off, right? Because there is a natural magnetism toward the alpha people, the alpha men, alpha women, whatever. You know what I'm saying? If you don't normalize monogamy, then you're gonna have some guys that it's gonna be just like Mutual of Omaha. You know what I'm saying? When they're looking at the lions, and their one lion's got all the I can't remember what the female lions are called, the women.
Don't kill me.
I'm just saying. I mean, I think that so that I feel when I look at this, I look at it through that lens, which is you're in a situation where people are not getting paired off at an early age, married, and just not worrying about that. Like when I used to hire a lot of Indian graduate students, and like clockwork, 6 months after they graduated, I get a wedding invitation, arranged marriage. And they get married, and they're good. They have their kids, whatever. They don't have to worry about that stuff anymore. There's none of this friends with benefits, right? It's as, where we are, where we, number one, is the denormalization of marriage, and number two is the idea we choose our own mates. That creates this kind of situation. And it's not a judgment or anything, but it's just what I see as to what we're really dealing with here.
And as we choose our own mates, our divorce rate continues to climb.
Right, well, because people go into marriage knowing that divorce is an option, right? Yeah. So there was a time, let me just break this down.
Okay.
No fault divorce.
A very practical way, and this is the problem that I have with the black community. And I am obviously a black man who has come from a two-parent home where my parents were married for all of, until my mother passed, And I can tell you this, one of the things that I see just across the board, this is why I have an issue, and this is why we talk about a lot of this stuff. Beer in the Conversation is a show about comprehensive barbershop talk. We're not women bashers. I talk about
not
what
all
we
of us
talk
are
about in the barbershop.
He
I'm telling you what black men are
here.
talking about. I'm giving you insight to what black men are talking about, and I don't hold back anything. You have, you just said every other nationality.
I didn't say anything about every. I
Well,
specifically talked about Indians.
Okay.
Yes.
I can tell you that I know Mexicans. I know every other nationality of people that believe in marriage.
You look kind of
As a
Mexican.
And a lot
I'm just
of
saying you
it-
look kind of Mexican.
A lot of
You
it is
should.
culturally based, because I have a
They
friend
gonna have
that
that
was
good.
here visiting
They
from
gonna have that
Uganda
good.
in Africa. She was here visiting last year.
I've got some.
We're on 285, and this is what makes you realize when something is real, because we're used to things our way here. We're on 285, and there's this big billboard of a divorce attorney advertising.
Of course.
She freaked out. Look at that. There's an attorney, and he's actually advertising divorce. Y'all are that open with it? I'm like, yeah, it's just an ad. It's just a billboard. Oh, you would never see that in my country. No. Because it's one of those things, even though their divorce rate is beginning to climb up because a lot of other countries, they're kind of copying all the bad habits of the Western world. But yeah, she, you know, her response though made me realize, wow, we have come a long way in this country, because you used to not see those type of things so open here years ago.
Well,
you know,
we needed
back in the
marriage was not
70s,
about-
you wouldn't have seen that maybe.
Is marriage really about love, or is it about partnership?
Woo.
It's about
That's kind of the problem.
That's a
it
whole
being
nother
about
show.
love is a novel thing. Like, that is not a universal value that goes into marriage. That's something that we in the West, after the troubadours, you know, they were kind of, at least that's the legend, they were responsible for that whole
Love
idea.
is a very fleeting emotion, right? I mean, how many homeboys or homegirls have you had that y'all might have fallen out for 6 months, but you didn't stop loving them? You know what I mean? And so I just think that everybody needs to be driven and looking at their goals and looking to. I heard one of the guys who was on the show here, Music Monk, said that he doesn't like the term settle down. And from a semantic standpoint, I get it. He likes leveling up. You know what I mean? And so let's look at what we're trying to do, and let's run together. Let's be even biblically like equally yoked, per se. You know, and so it's, you know, but Disney movies, I said this a long time ago, that Disney movies messed our women up. They messed them up, man.
I don't.
Okay.
Love should not be, I mean, I'm just saying.
Okay, well, I have a comment from one
ahead.
of our viewers on Instagram. Says, I believe younger women don't have the staying power, and people not investing the time to build bonds that can survive. People marry for business. This is another viewer. People marry for business just to say they're married. Nobody marries for love anymore. And that also leads to, for me to think about that as well, because I don't even think people in the past really married for love. They married for stability, and they married for somebody can be a provider for their household. And that's what previously, in previous generations, that's mostly what it was about. Hey, this man or this woman is going to be good for my children, good for my household, and I'll learn to love them later. And to echo what Rashid said, it's a novel thing to really feel like I'm in love with this person that I'm marrying, I'm making all these vows with, but it's more so a arrangement of sorts. And not necessarily because, you know, this I feel is the person I truly can be with for the rest of my entire life. Do you really find that person at 18, at 21, at 25, at 30? Do you know yourself at those ages? Do you know what you can tolerate, what you can live with, what you can't, what you like? Do you know yourself enough to be like, I can commit to a single person for the rest of my life, knowing that in our core, we are animals. So therefore, being and having sex with one person may or may not really be what we're built to be.
How do you feel exactly?
I just don't think people can stay in a monogamous relationship for the rest of their lives. I really don't. And truly
I
don't.
think they can. I don't think
really
it's
don't.
natural.
It's not natural.
I think it's possible.
Tony
Now,
is out of control. Tony said, "Is this class?"
to what degree
I got time for
being, you know, having high degrees of fidelity in those relationships is possible. There's a whole other story for me, but I think it's possible. But I think
But
it's important
it's
to
not
take
natural.
it the next step, which is, particularly when you talk about in America, there have been a lot of things that have happened. So if you look at like marriage divorce rates in America, you'll see that after World War II, there's a big spike, and then it went all the way back down to where it was. Then through the late 60s and the 70s, up until maybe the early like 83 or so, there was a steady increase, and it just kind of leveled off. And what was happening in that second increase in divorce was no-fault divorce. Before that, it was very difficult to get a divorce. You also had increasing labor participation by women, because the labor market evolved to the point where it was not necessarily a byproduct of things that men naturally had advantages in, things like manufacturing and hard labor and things along those lines. Women, you know, labor force allowed people to be rewarded for using their heads and not just their bodies, which created an advantageous situation for women, and therefore the motivations that Jay talked about that a lot of women may have had around just latching on to somebody that can, you know, be a provider, and so they can be a parent, that sort of thing. Those norms have been upset by just our labor market.
And women have the ability to go to school. Women have an education now. They're not have to just, again, settle for somebody who can be the breadwinner in the household. So that also makes me think, is this why so many women are saying that they're single? Are they to the point where they've been, you know, fighting for equal rights, what we talked about before, to the point where They're like, I am the head of the household. I can be the provider. Now I have forgotten what it's like to be a homemaker, what it's like to be submissive, not submissive to being run over, but understanding that what a man's role is in a household.
Well,
so now
who
I
you
can't.
love or who you admire. Bottom line. So maybe men need to be more admirable.
I agree with that.
Yeah, I mean, maybe that's the job
I
of
think
men,
the most
that they
empowered
need to-
woman in the world will respect you if you are a person
Absolutely.
That
of
they
character.
respect. So
and
now, is that where the women sit? I've listened to so many conversations with Steve Harvey show, with this show, with that show. Well, I want a man that is a
And by the way,
man.
Veer in the Conversation is a much better show than the Steve Harvey show. Go ahead.
It's comprehensive barbershop talk. But again, they say, I want a man that's a man. I want a man who can protect me. I want a man who can do all these things, and that's what they respect. So it's almost that thing where, do you want a man who's a thug in a sense? Do you want a man who is streetish? Do you want a man who is smart? Do you want a man who has a combination of these things? This is like, I believe women are sometimes confused in the fact of what they truly want in a mate, that they just kind of, well, he ain't right, he's not what I want, to the point where now they're frustrated and they don't believe that there are a man who can, I guess, fit the bill for what they want, and that leaves people single and bitter and all these other things. And then I don't know what happens after that.
Tells you no matter what
no idea.
degree of success that she has, that she doesn't want to be married and doesn't want to have children and stuff, she's lying. Okay.
I believe that too. Yeah.
She is fucking lying. Bottom line.
Do you all believe that a woman is lying if she says she doesn't want kids and doesn't want to get married because she can do it? I'm an independent woman.
Some are probably putting on the front. I don't know that all of them are.
I would say most.
I mean,
of
and
them
I don't
though,
even. Huh?
Most of them are putting on the front. I think going back to what's natural within us, I think to some degree, even nowadays, little girls still grow up having that fantasy in their head of growing up and having the dream wedding and meeting that guy that's going to sweep them off their feet and all of this.
Mm-hmm.
I think that that's still a part of the fabric of who they are.
It could be, but that's not. I mean, there's nothing inherent in that. I mean, that's just pure culture and socialization, you know. And I think it's fair to say that women are getting less of that these days. Little girls are probably getting less of that these days than they got when we were younger.
And also, I think you know, you look at how girls are raised now. You're raised to survive, be able to survive. And you have to learn how to do the things that a man would do, because you may have to be the head of your household for a certain period of time. So they're just like, well, I can do the same thing that he can do. Well, what would I need a man for? And then sometimes the men interpret women being able to women being resourceful. So for instance, let me make an example. When a woman has to learn how to change a tire, fix something in her house, or have to, you know, do some type of manual labor around the house, men will take that as, oh, well, she doesn't need me. She doesn't need me to do anything in the house. But it's one of those things where if you're a single woman and you're living by yourself, you have to learn how to be resourceful. You have to learn how to go to YouTube, figure out how to fix your dryer, figure out how to fix your stove. But if you had a man to step into your life who you were dating at that time, he can do that anytime. It's not about not needing a man once we learn how to do these things. It's just we have to survive for now until that man comes into our life and he can step in and do those things for us. And the man not taking it as, well, she doesn't need me. Yes, we still need you. We just have to do what we have to do until you get there.
Absolutely. And I think that's being resourceful. Trish, you look like you wanted to say something. You grabbed it kind of
Yes.
fast.
I didn't grab it fast like that, but I'm just.
I'm a radio show host.
I'm going to talk from experience, okay? I have been married before. I was married for about 8 years, and I married really young. Like you said, I didn't really know myself, got into it young, learned a very valuable lesson, but now my life and my perspective have changed. I completely cut my whole dreams and goals and everything off for this marriage, okay? Now I have so much more energy. I have so much more time to go after my goals. I'm very happily single right now. So for you to say all the women are lying, from my perspective, I am so happily single right now. I'm knowing myself. I'm growing. Sure. I'm accomplishing goals. I'm traveling the world. I'm making, I'm at a different point in my life. And now, even having children, my perspective is changing because I'm seeing the world from a whole different view now. So I'm like, wow, do I really want to raise a child in the condition of the world right now. So these are things that I'm reflecting on as a young woman. Do I want to bring a child into this? Being single, it's just different now. So I don't agree
that's why we have
all
discussion.
women are single. And I can imagine how many other women really feel like that. It's like when you get a sense of freedom and you're accomplishing so much more, it's like this man is going to have to be.
Well, you know what? And men are, Rose said some are damaged goods. So to your point, and we hope they're not like permanently damaged. But I say this. I understand where you're coming from, and it makes sense. I have had some revelations as a man who has gone through some financial hardships, and I've kind of reassessed this whole notion of sacrificing for somebody else. And just kind of looked at this thing from I'll sacrifice for the right person, right? And I'll take my time to figure out who the right person is. You can't move off of a feeling. You know what I mean? There has to be kind of some sort of consistency and repetitiveness with regard to that. But I will say this: I just have not met. I haven't met a woman who didn't need attention. It's one of probably the more. I mean, we talked about Facebook, Instagram, and all that. Attention is pretty damn high. And I don't think that it's actually a conscious thing as more as it is a subconscious thing, right?
Can I just say,
How does
Tony
that
had a comment.
disqualify her from? Sorry, go ahead, Jay.
Oh, Tony had a comment on Facebook Live. He says, "Real talk. If you're not ready to be married, you shouldn't. Just like any endeavor, you have to commit and sacrifice. But some people just aren't meant to be married." Sylvia says of A1 Defensive Driving says, "That's where she is now, and we go through phases." I think she's talking about your comments, Trish. Over time, our perceptions change. If you're still the same person at 40 that you were at 20, you've wasted 20 years of your life. Your perspective should change. Yeah. Your outlook should change on a lot of things. And so, things that you believe in at 20, you may have a whole different lens that you look at life when you're 40. So, again, that growing, that maturity and things like that. And also opening yourself to knowledge, talking to people who have been down that road. And one of my good friends said, you really don't know it until you walk through it. You don't know what to expect. People think, oh, marriage is going to be like this. A job is going to be like this. Being an entrepreneur is going to look like this. Until you're walking through it and going through it, you really have no idea what to truly expect.
But isn't the reward in working through the challenges?
That is the reward, because it makes it much sweeter. It makes it sweeter. But when people alter their lives, they alter who they are. They alter the things that they want to do and pursue in life for a relationship. Because I've met a young lady. Her uncle passed, and her aunt's words were, "Now I'm free. I can go travel the world. I can grow my hair in locks. I can go do all the things that my husband did not like." But that's not the right partner. Because your partner should be encouraging of all the things that you want to do, all the things you want to pursue. And a lot of marriages end because one of the partners was not supportive of the other. If your wife is not supportive of you being an entrepreneur, if your husband is not supportive of you pursuing your career in modeling, acting, nursing, whatever it is, you're going to lose that person.
Absolutely. Because
they're not being your backbone. They're not being that support structure that you need.
I actually heard a minister say this, and this is probably, I think that men have done this. I have done this. I am guilty of this, and a lot of other men are. Just not understanding what maintenance is. So I went to church a couple years ago.
He said a couple months, a couple weeks,
years. And I'm going to go back too, and y'all are welcome to come with me. But,
okay. Like my white gloves.
This white gloves?
Mm-hmm.
Usher gloves?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you going to be getting gum out of kids' mouths?
Nah, child.
Okay, right. That's a southern.
It's just southern elegance.
At the door, take it out.
Okay. Oh, okay. I see what you're saying now. You going to wear a hat too?
Mm-hmm.
All right, cool. I love it.
A little net on it.
Right, exactly.
With the motherboard.
You going to do the announcements too? But no, for real. And he said something. He said, whatever you don't love in your life, you will lose. Wife, children, if you have a business, employees. everything is about maintenance, and but you're not taught that. You're taught we were taught wrong. We have I've called it a antiquated inverse God plantation style model of leadership that's been passed down to black men. Okay, and we've taken on the character traits of our oppressor. And so, and unfortunately, to a degree, some of that's even spilled over into our women, but I'll address the men first. You can't, we even had the whole discussion about friends with benefits. You can't do that. Once you understand the way that things operate and when women operate, it takes a man a long time. You're like a big brother to me, and I appreciate all the things that we talk about, and that you know the information that we exchange, and you know this just as well as I do, that when you're dealing with women, you do have to deal with it takes you a long time to figure out even how to deal with women, and if you're taught wrong, then you assume that once I got her, and so that's why, and she is to be subjective to whatever it is that I want to do.
Yeah, and I think that's where the decay of religion and spirituality starts, and its influence on how people are raised and taught. Obviously people can take those teachings and create a very impressive view of women in a man. I was fortunate to have not gotten that out of it. And I mean, that's really what, a lot of what religion is, are best practices as discovered over the years. And I got to tell you, there's a lot of wisdom out there on these questions, to the point where you don't actually have to learn them. If you submit and you have a little bit of faith, and you go with it, you'll find a lot of success.
Absolutely.
But your heart's got to be right.
I've always said that it took me a while. I kind of came to this conclusion around 34 or 35 that, I'm not far from 37 now. I'm still young. And,
keep telling yourself that.
He can't get his life together.
And but I had come to the conclusion that I could, for a long time in my life, said, why did God give man free will? And I honestly believe it's because God figured out a long time ago that there is no glory in someone serving you because they have no choice. It's all about them getting to the point to where a man comes back to God and say, I want to. Yeah. Because you're so good to me. And I think that if men really took that approach, they could really get whatever they want from a woman. But you can only get it from one woman. So that's why when there was this whole thing about monogamy, me and you are in agreement. It take us, we learned some hard lessons as men.
I hear you.
Unfortunately. You know what I mean? But you can't afford more than one woman, because you'll never be able to get the most out of one woman as long as she knows she got to compete with other women.
And so often I think men think the opposite. They think if I have 3 women competing for my affection, I'm getting the best out of all of them, because they are all competing for my attention, my affection. And that goes to a comment that another viewer on Facebook Live said, men need attention too. And they do. But again, it's finding that balance, I think, between both. You definitely want to cater to one another, and you want to make sure that they are feel very important in your worlds, and they feel like they are of value in your world.
That's true, but I think the attention that men seek is a lot different from the attention women seek.
Oh.
We're simple creatures. We really are. The attention that we want our ego stroke.
We want respect.
We definitely want respect.
Absolutely.
And we want to feel like you know how to make us feel like a man. You make us feel worthy of being a man.
Absolutely.
And that actually can be the conduit for getting a woman a lot of things that she wants, right?
I was going to say that next. You're absolutely right.
Like he's the man. Then she can get anything she wants out of it.
If women really learned that, they could have the world.
And I think women do learn it.
Yeah.
I think women do learn that. A lot of times it may be in the form of strippers, it may be in the form of sex workers, it may be in the form of women who may not necessarily be in certain professions, but they learn how to use and learn how to talk to men, learn how to use certain tactics, so to speak, to do that. And a lot of times some women are taught, hey, you got to go to school, you got to get education, you have to be able to do for yourself. And we miss that lesson on stroking the ego, making the man feel like the head of the household. So again, and versus sometimes women who all they know how to do is be good to a man. That's about all they know how to do. Versus they may not be able to balance a checkbook, And I'm not trying to generalize or anything, but in some situations, that could be the case.
That's not a bad thing, though. When I get married, my wife is handling the bills. And I'm going to tell you something. I talked to my boy about this the other day. She's handling the bills, and that's going to get all the other women away from me.
It's going to get what?
All the other women away from me. I'm going to keep my wife with me at all times. Just to leave me alone. Let me tell you something. It's serious. No, I'm going to tell you something. I'm serious.
Because he look Mexican.
I just starting to rethink that feature on your show. But seriously, in the sense of you have no idea, just the woes of being an unwed man who is striving to get somewhere. I mean, it's crazy. And then you don't have to worry about people asking you for all money. You got to talk to my wife. She handles it. Can you imagine that? Could you imagine? You know how women are when it comes to money. They don't.
Yeah,
my mama don't
I
play.
can imagine saying no
my
as
mama
well.
Don't play.
Women don't play about money, and they definitely don't play when it comes to other women wanting money. You know what I mean?
I don't know. One thing I've dated a lot of extraordinary women that were good with money. Is maybe I'm just picking them wrong, but the vast majority of women I've dealt with have been very bad with money for whatever reason.
I agree with that. That's been my experience.
I'm not trying to stereotype. I'm just telling you my experience.
But I'm
gonna tell you.
So I'm assuming they're good with money.
Them not being stupid, them not being stupid, and them being good with money are two different things.
No,
Good point.
Minimizing
the woman
expense.
that I married when I was younger, she was very intelligent. But when it came to finance, and I'm going to blame it on we were young when we got married. But when it come to finances, very irresponsible. I was the responsible one. She had the checkbook in the beginning. And I'll never forget driving down the highway one day because we came to a real bad point financially in our marriage. I was yelling at her, and I was like, when we get home, I need you to give me the checkbook. I'm handling everything from now on. And there was a bunch of other stuff that went along with that conversation we had. Really? She started crying and everything. I'm like, my attitude was, I don't care. We're not going to be broke for no reason. Just because you got to have the new this and you got to, we got brand new furniture when we didn't need it. A whole living room set. What is that about?
I'm just trying to figure out how.
Finance is the number one reason for divorce.
Right. Well, I've heard that too. I'm trying to figure out how women have figured out how to live with not spending any money. I mean, I've never seen anything like it in my life. But then they take the money. You know what?
Yeah, what they do with the money they do spend is a problem.
Okay, right.
Like being able to not spend, being able to get you to buy dinner for them is one thing. That using the money they save to put toward the future as opposed to things that aren't necessarily.
They're gonna mess both of us up if they mismanage the money.
And then at the same time, what is the conversation that y'all have been having about finances? Because finances is a part of the relationship as well. And again, one of those conversations that may or may not be, I've never been married, so I don't know what marriage counseling involves. I don't know what those discussions that couples have when they're engaged, what that involved. But it seems like, again, expectation management. This is what I bring in. This is what you bring in. Which income do we need to live off of? Because we don't need to live off both. Because what are we trying to attain? But what are we trying to attain in the long run? Are we having those really hard conversations? What are we willing to sacrifice? Comfort? Are we willing to sacrifice time? What type of money are we willing to sacrifice as well? Because what is the end goal for us? Are we trying to have kids? Are we trying to start a business? Are we trying to relocate? Like, are these the conversations that people have? You may not have it at 20 when you're considering getting married, but you're 36. Is this the type of conversation that you would have with a potential mate prior to getting married?
Absolutely.
We're going to see y'all.
Yeah. I'm telling you something.
Especially nowadays, especially these young ones carrying all this debt right now.
Jason J-Boy Carey, what's up, man? How you doing?
Shout out to Max, Sean, Darren, EJ, all y'all. Hey, y'all.
Check Jason J-Boy Carey out Monday evenings too. I can't even think of the name of your show, Jason. I am so sorry, man.
Text it to him, Jason. No, he old.
Listen, let's just say it's in closing because we got to get ready to wrap it up. Great discussion. Wow, man. We need to get
Hey, Darren.
This is spicy.
Next week.
Yeah, maybe we can just pick it back up. You know what I don't understand? And maybe we can save it for next week.
Talk to me.
If it's going to mess both of us up and we're going to be out on the streets, at this stage, I just don't see it, man. I don't know. You know what? You know what? Here's the thing. I talked to my boy, and he said something that, what's up, Brian Ashley? How you doing, man? Creme High School. If it's going to mess both of us up, what I really need is a woman, too. And a man, actually, this is the culmination of everything we've been talking about.
Did you get to the mic, please?
You need, I'm sorry.
Get back in the mic.
J Squared on the air. Oh, you on Spotify now. Oh, you doing big things, Jason.
Okay.
Shouts out to you. I know you're working with Regina, too. By the way, kudos for that.
Culmination.
Everybody needs somebody who's already battle tested.
Yes.
That's it.
Battle tested is important.
Y'all go ahead, give a final thought. Let's get out of here. Go.
Final thought. Make your mistakes while you're young, because you're going to make them, period. In your 20s, make them. By the time you're in your mid-30s, you should have it figured out or almost figured out. If you don't, you might be in trouble.
Oh, wait, Trish, you want something? Good.
Go ahead, just ride the wave of life. Just learn, keep growing, never stop growing.
My brother.
This might be really bad form, but I mean, there's another school of thought out there around the degradation of marriage that's based around the prolific welfare state, which I think is a very interesting thing to at least take a look at, even if you don't buy it the whole way through. But if you're interested on this whole idea of how we got to where we are, I think the labor market, the legal system that we work within, and incentives that are created by social economic programs, I think all play a role, along with just general changes in values. Y'all have a good week.
So I would like to say, sometimes you win, sometimes you learn. So those areas when you lose, and to what KP was saying, you make your mistakes, make sure that you learn from them. When it comes to a relationship, have those hard discussions early. A lot of times we get caught up in being polite. We get caught up in saying, you know, well, I don't want to say anything because, or, you know, everything will smooth itself out. And it may not. And when you finally things come to a head, that's when things can get ugly, these can get difficult, and you end up just messing up your relationship beyond repair. So learn how to have those tough conversations, lean on a friend, hell, hit up one of us so we could maybe try to help you, walk you through some of those difficult conversations that you need to have, because these are important, because these will definitely determine the outcome of a lot of things that happen in your life. Hit me up. I'm at JAI Certified on Instagram and on Facebook.
Right.
And
go ahead.
Y'all gonna be single if you listen
Tune into my show tomorrow, 1100 a.m. at 4 o'clock.
Right, and if you have those tough discussions with somebody and they run away, good. That's time to do it. All right, this is something I've been wanting to say before we get out of here. Mike, big Outkast fan. We in East Point. East Point, smoke some dank. Let's go. Beer and conversation.
Colin Paul got the skanks.
Hailing and Deloge.